I think we'll begin. You can let anyone in. We're gonna, as I say, we might have to be a little quiet with the instruments and things, and if you can make the sound louder for people, but I can't make it too loud here. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Sesha Sanyavarere Astyacha Dishatana Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Sesha Sanyavarere Astyacha Dishatana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gauranga Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Bhaktavinda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada ki. Shri Shri Govanitai ki. Shri Shri Radha Shamasundar ki. Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki. Harinam Sankirtan ki. Brihat Madanga ki. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glorious to Sri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tiname. Namaste Saraswate Devi. Gauravani Vicharni Namaste Sanyavadi Pastichardi Shatani. We welcome all of you wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Thank you for joining us today in this Sangha to help each other to remember Krishna. Remembrance of Krishna, all stress, anxiety, it's like when the sun rises, the fog is dissipated, the darkness is removed. So remembering Krishna, Surya Sam, Maya Haya Andhakara, famous verse, Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describes how Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like darkness. Wherever there is sun, there cannot be darkness. Similarly, wherever there is Krishna, there cannot be illusion or Maya. We just have to open our hearts, open our eyes, Om Jnana Timirandasya, not the mundane eyes. We can do that also to visualize the effects of this world in relationship with Krishna, but ultimately it's the inner heart, opening our heart up to submissive oral reception of the message of Godhead. So we'd like to especially very inspired to see the devotees from Makati in Manila, in Philippines, who joined us today. What is this? Maybe we can mute our mobile phones. You'll have to apologize. I have to apologize. I can't speak too loud because we are in an apartment building in Paris and there are neighbors around us. And in Paris at the moment, in France, it is 8 o'clock in the morning. And on Sunday morning, and those who are from the Western world will know that Sunday morning means sleep for most people. And upstairs and probably on the side also, there are definitely sleeping. They're already in ignorance, but they're sleeping even more so in the lap of Maya. So we should really wake them up. But the problem being they may not appreciate it at this moment. They're not quite ready for that. So I hope you can hear, because I cannot speak much louder than this without causing a commotion. So anyway, we'll persevere at the best that we can this morning. And we're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. But before we start reading, we're going to sing 2 bhajans. And one of them you know very well, Jai Radha Madhava. The other one you may not know at all. And I'm going to ask the permission of Rasikananda Prabhu, who is hosting us. He is in Wellington in New Zealand. Many of you know him. And I will have to share screen, Rasika, if that's okay. So we have to work that one out just a minute. I'm just going to, I don't know what this, why is this other thing behind us? So I can just knock it out. can knock all this out. I'll make this bigger. There we go. Yeah, now I want to share screen. Is that okay, Vasika? I'm pressing the button and I'm putting it, I think I am. Put it on. Is it okay? We'll put it on a slideshow to make it easier if we can. Normally when I do that, it gives me the choice. Slideshow, there we are. Play from current slide. This is a song which isn't sung very often. It's a song from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And it's in his many songs which he revealed to the world the path of devotional service. And they will be various levels, we could say, of progress on spiritual life. Now, this is from a compilation of songs which are titled Sharanagati, or surrender, songs on the path of surrender. Sharana, taking shelter, Gati, the path of taking full shelter or surrendering, say voluntarily maybe, surrendering our independent view and taking shelter of the absolute truth, taking shelter of Krishna. So this is from Sharanagati. Vidyaya Valasi refers to the, you could say, the illusion of pursuing material knowledge. It's more or less very prominent pursuit of most people is to accumulate more and more material knowledge. Knowledge which has a material cause and effect. Spiritual knowledge is causeless. It's a hoitikiya patiyata. It has no material cause whatsoever. It is eternally existing because it is, we could say, the knowledge pertaining to the absolute truth. And the absolute truth is eternal, whereas the material manifestation is temporary. So we have what's called vidya. In this case, the word vidya is also used, but it's the mundane knowledge, and avidya, which is normally referring to the material knowledge of this world. And most people are absorbing avidya with no even consideration of genuine vidya or absolute knowledge, which has no cause, materially speaking. Everything comes from Krishna, of course. Krishna is causeless. So the knowledge pertaining to Krishna is also, in one sense, you could say, is without any cause, certainly without any material cause. So we'll sing this song today, if we can. It's, as I say, very rarely sung. And we'll sing a very simple tune, which I hope will be easy to follow. You can make as much noise as you like in your homes. We can't make too much noise here for fear of waking up the sleeping souls. We also like to welcome old friends from Newcastle. Long time we've not seen, and it's so nice to see you both there. Hare Krishna. Haribol. We will see you physically soon, I hope. So, and same in Philippines and everywhere else around the world. There's some viewers have joined us, not very often, from Malaysia also, and other countries. Thank you for being with us all. Vidyara vilase katahinu kalam paramasahaseyam. Vidyara vilase katahinu kalam paramasahaseyam. Tumara charana naputino kamo ekona sharana tumi. Tumara charana naputino kamo Ekona Shadana Puri Podite Podite Parasabarilo Jane Gati Habe Man Se Ashabi Pala Se Jnana Drupala Se Jnana Agnana Jana Se Jnana Drupala Se Jnana Jada Vidya Jata Maya Vaibhava Tomara Bhajane Badha Jada Vidya Jata Maya Vaibhava Tomara Bhajane Badha Mohajanamiya Anicca samsare jiva ke kare gadha. Mohajanamiya Anicca samsare jiva ke kare gadha. Se gadha samsare raboja Harido Vani Kakara Sikadha Hoye Samsara Bodha Harido Vani Kakara Adake Kona Shaktira Bhave Kicho Nahila Gita Adake Kona Shaktira Bhave Kicho Nahila Gita Jivana Jatana Oilo Kavana Sevidya Vidya Jivana Jatana Oilo Kona Sevidya Vidya Avidya Rujvala Katilo Vishama Sevidya Oilo Shelo Avidya Rajana Gatiyo Vishama Sevidya Oilo Shelo Tomara Chadana Bina Kichudana Samsadena Chaya Tomara Chadana Bina Kichudana Samsadena Bhakti Vinoda Jadavidya Chari Tua Pada Koresana Bhakti Vinoda Jadavidya Chari Tua Pada Koresana Bhakti Vinoda Jadavidya Chari Tua Pada Koresa Bhakti Vinoda Jadavidya Chari Tua Pada Koresa Vidya Vilase Katahinu Kala Paramasahasya Vidya Vilase Katahinu Kala Paramasahasya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. And translation to this song. With great enthusiasm. Now this is Bhakti Vinod Thakur speaking on his own behalf, but particularly for ourselves, a song of reflection. With great enthusiasm, I spent my time in the pleasures of mundane learning and never worshipped your lotus feet, O Lord. Now you are my only shelter. Reading on and on, my hopes grew and grew, for I considered the acquisition of material knowledge to be life's true goal. How fruitless those hopes have turned out to be, for all my knowledge has proved feeble. Now I know that all such erudition is actually pure ignorance. All the so-called knowledge of this world is born of the flickering potency of your illusory energy, Maya. It is an impediment to the execution of devotional service to you. Indulgence in mundane knowledge verily makes an ass of the eternal soul by encouraging his infatuation with this temporary world. Here is one person who has been turned into such an ass, who for so long has carried on his back the useless burden of material existence. Now in my old age, for want of the power to enjoy, I find that nothing at all pleases me. So many points, some of them we may be realizing ourselves. I don't know. Maybe we're still hankering for varieties of material knowledge of various material subjects, be they literally what we call knowledge in this world, or just information about various objects in terms of sense enjoyment or places and so on and so forth. We may spend most of our life in this way, inquiring about how to get this and how to get that, which of course, as long as we're in the material world, there is, even the Upanishad describes it, there's a need for this type of knowledge, but not that our life is completely dedicated to it, as if it's all in all. We can see the result of those who spent their life in the pursuit of mundane knowledge, of even scientific knowledge. Everybody, basically speaking, cannot help us at the time of death. It doesn't do much for us. It doesn't really change the world in many ways. It may look like it does, but underlying the surface, there's no real change. People are dissatisfied or whatever it may be. Various ways are not satisfied, suffering in various ways. Life has now become agony when we realize we've worked hard our whole lives and we wasted our time, and that realization may not come to most people. But for those who do get that realization, those who suddenly wake up and realize the goal of life is not just material pursuit. The goal of life is spiritual self-realization. And beyond that, the goal of life, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhuta Prasanatma, Shochiti Nakangshti, Samaksavesha Bhuti Shumad Bhaktim Labate Brahma. But beyond this spiritual self-realization, where all material hankering ceases and all material lamentation cease, because one is no longer, you could say, under the influence of Maya. One who's come to that Brahman or spiritual platform of realization, at that point, real devotional service begins. Devotional service which is not mixed with personal motivation, material motivation, or material engagements of various kinds. One has no more attraction to this material world. One may be living in it, but no attraction for it in of itself. One sees it as belonging to Krishna. In that way, it can be seen as attractive, but otherwise not. Otherwise, one doesn't see anything separate from Krishna. And the more that this understanding, realization of everything's connection to Krishna and how it can bring pleasure to Krishna as devotional service really begins. It's spiritual. And it doesn't matter. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, you're now in old age. Now in old age, he's realized this is maybe because you can't enjoy anymore. And if you are an old, I don't know how you define old exactly, but a body which is no longer able to enjoy the senses as before, let's say. And sometimes one may in a helpless situation, realizing nothing in this world pleases me anymore, one may search or one may take the devotional service. Really, sometimes. Life, he says, has now become agony. For my so-called erudite knowledge has proven itself to be worthless ignorance because it doesn't solve the real problems of life. Birth, death, disease, and old age, and the threefold miseries pertaining to body and mind towards other living entities or caused by nature under the direction of the demigods and they're under the direction of Krishna. So these threefold miseries which we cannot escape, no matter whether we're rich, poor, old or young, whatever our religious designation may or may not be, whatever our occupation in life may be, it doesn't, the material energy, the prongs of Durga Devi with her prongs, no living entity can escape the effects of that karma. It's imposed upon every living entity. And there's no escape. Even if we are materially learned, we still have our karmic reactions. So it's ignorance because it doesn't teach us how to get out of this situation. In fact, he said earlier on, it entangles us further in the material world. Material knowledge has now become a pointed shaft and has pierced my heart with the intolerable burning pain of ignorance. It is, it's like, what is the use of it all? Where is it going now? How is it really helping anyone to know more and more and more and more about other planets or the dinosaurs or whatever it is, all kinds of things people spend billions of dollars on, but it doesn't really improve anything. It doesn't help anyone in even materially, what to speak of spiritually. Oh Lord, there is no treasure worth seeking in this world other than your lotus feet. Bhaktivinoda abandons all of his mundane knowledge and makes your lotus feet the summum substance of his life. Yes, what is the value of all material acquisitions? People are looking for treasures in this world, and but what is the value in it all? It's all lost in due course of time. Everything is lost. Can't keep anything. Material nature takes everything away from us. So better we pursue a life which leads to, even materially speaking, satisfaction in this world. No, removing fear, removing stress and anxiety, and what to speak of life beyond this, but even in this lifetime, which will bring people are working so hard, making all kinds of arrangements to try to achieve both sense gratification and freedom from stress and anxiety and suffering. But it's not, even if we get, relatively speaking, a successful situation, it doesn't last. It doesn't last. According to our karma, we may get such a thing for a while, but it doesn't last very long. Very quickly, things change in this world. And disappointment or lamentation comes in. Rise above this, Krishna says. Transcend this. They'll become entangled. Spiritual life. So today we're going to sing from another song now, which you most likely know, Radha Madhava. And then we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Baba Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Baba Girivardhari Gopi Jana Yashodanandana Rajajanandana Yashodanandana Rajajanandana Yashodanandana Rajajanandana Yamona Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jayurana Maharaja Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanandi Shubhavad Ki Jai, Kuntraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasindhivaccha Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivasesha Sanyamati Pastachardi Tarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna. So this morning we'll carry on. As far as I can remember, last week we did read from Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who were with us may remember, and it was from the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, which contains basically the entire, in a short synopsis, but the entire outline of devotional service. It's, as we say, in a brief presentation. Srimad Bhagavatam then expands throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, is expanded on the various foundational points mentioned in the second chapter throughout the Bhagavatam to actually bring us to that highest perfection of existence, out of the whatever illusions we may be in about ourselves and others and so on. And so we'll continue with that second chapter today, which is beginning, you could say, the response of Sutta Goswami's response to the great sages who were assembled there, inquiring on the nature of the Absolute, inquiring about the purpose of life and so on. So we'll continue from there. So actually, if Vasikananda Prabhu can share the screen, it might be useful, at least as we read these verses. We're going to start by reading the, let's see, as far as I remember, we went over 5 and 6 last week. I don't know if we really went over them, but we'll go on to 7 today. And text number 7, there it is. This is most of these verses are quite familiar verses to those who've been around a while. So together we can chant. I'll chant the line once and you can repeat once. Vasudeve Bhagavate Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyashu Vairagyam Yanam Triyada Vaitakam Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyashu vairagyam Jnanam chayad vaitukam. This verse is a very important verse too. We can move down to the synonyms, please, Rasika. Synonyms. The words in this verse, many of them are familiar and they're quite understandable, like Vasudeva, of course, is unto Krishna, name of Krishna, Vasudeva. Bhagavati, also Bhagavati. In this case, is referring to the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, Bhagavat. Bhakti Yoga, I guess we all heard that one. Contact of devotional service. Next one may not be so common. Prayojita, being applied. Excuse me. To apply something, if we don't use that knowledge, even materially speaking, it's not really much use. It remains a mental, subtle, you could say, experience, but to really get value from something, we need to apply it. So being applied, Janayati produces. When we apply something, we expect something to be produced. Ashu, very soon. Vairagyam, detachment. Vairagyam Vidanija Bhakti Yogam. This is the one of the, Lord Chaitanya said of the Vaishnavas is the sign of a Vaishnava. They're no longer, they're not attached to this material. Vairagya usually means renunciation or detachment. Jnanam, we've already heard that word many times this morning, refers to knowledge, cha and yat, that which, ahoitikam, we heard that verse also this morning, causeless. So different ways of, you could say, of looking at this verse today. We'll move on to the translation. Srila Prabhupada is translated as follows: by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from this world. Although word for word we see very soon, it's usually, it happens immediately, but not to a complete degree, we could say. It takes time before it fully matures. In other words, once realization and causeless knowledge, as we've heard earlier on, is not the knowledge of this world. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking here realized knowledge, knowledge of the spiritual realm. That is revealed, or that takes place, awakens. It is not, it is internal, it is not caused by a temporary activity. It's not a temporary effect. It's an eternal principle. So that knowledge related to Krishna gradually starts to awaken in the performance of devotion service, step by step, as does detachment from the world. And Prabhupada made it quite clear it's not just being renounced in a sense of austerity. It's actually when one is genuinely detached from this world. To become genuinely detached from this world is not a matter of just, say, withdrawing oneself from this world. As we hear in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes it to, those, where's that verse now? How did it go? Oh, maybe I can't remember. But anyway, there's a verse there in the Bhagavad Gita. Anyway, somebody might be able to find it out. Those who restrain themselves. Well, there's two verses actually. This is quite a famous one. Vishaya vinivartinte niraharastya rasavajangmasokisya from Vishvanavartinte. That when we restrain oneself from the sense objects, but the taste for sense enjoyment still remains. But by experiencing higher taste, one becomes fixed in purpose. There's another verse which describes how, in the Bhagavad Gita, how one who may be restraining themselves apparently from sense gratification, but within they're still attached. Such a person is a fool and a pretender. And of course, we all experience that because we're still, you could say, on the path. So there's an element of this foolishness still in our consciousness, in our being, in this world. But paramdrishvanavartate, by experiencing how real detachment comes when we're attached to something which is causeless. As long as we're attached to that which has a cause, or under the influence of material energy, we cannot really experience this revealed or true revelation of spiritual knowledge or spiritual life. It's a little foggy, a little cloudy. There's a distraction and there's something there, but it's not fully dawned. It's like the dawning when the sun rises in the morning. Early rays of the sun, they do remove so much of the darkness of night, but you're not yet receiving the warmth. The actual warmth of the sun is not yet penetrating, although the beginning is there. The darkness of night is being removed. So ignorance is being removed, but we're not yet in the sunlight, exactly, or let's say in the sunshine. Just a little bit there, sort of almost like a reflection of the sun. And that is removing the darkness of night. So this preliminary stage of devotional service is not yet fully dawned, not yet fully awoken. But even in the preliminary stages, there's a removal of ignorance, or the causes of suffering are removed. Although the awakening, you could say, of our constitutional nature or our normal situation in relation with Krishna has not really happened yet. Beginning, under the direction of a pure devotee, we may be engaged in activities which, if pursued or persevered, will lead to realization, will lead to an awakening of love of Godhead, of Krishna. We'll read the purport if that's okay. Those who consider devotional service to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna to be something like material emotional affairs may argue that in the revealed scriptures, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic powers, and similar other processes of transcendental realization are recommended. According to them, bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord, is meant for those who cannot perform the high-grade activities. Generally, it is said that the bhakti cult is meant for the Shudras, Vaishyas, and the less intelligent women class. But that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activity. Therefore, it is simultaneously sublime and easy. It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord, and it is easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. To achieve the contact of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is a great science, and it's open for all living beings, including Shudras, Vaishyas, women, and even those lower than the low-born Shudras. So what to speak of the high-class men like the qualified Brahmins and the great self-realized kings? The other high-grade activities designated as sacrifice, charity, austerity, etc., are all corollary factors following the pure and scientific bhakti cult. The principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. This is interesting. We've just seen that, that by rendering service, one acquires these. By rendering devotional service. In other words, it would sound that there's no need to even think about them. But here it says, the principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual. And the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether, as men with a poor fund of knowledge think. Naishkarma means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. This is a different, there are three kinds, many kinds, but three specific categories of activity: karma, vikarma, akarma. And most people are not even in, we talk of karma, But most people in this world are not even following the path of karma. They're following the path of vikarma. They're acting whimsically, not following religious directives or the directives of realized souls. They're acting according to their whims and basically engage in sinful activity, and that's called vikarma. Acting whimsically. Karma means activities. We're still attached to the material world. We're still attached to the fruits of our work. We're going to be attached to our work and so on, identifying even with this world. But we're following religious principles, so that's called karma. And that will gradually detach the living entity from his material illusion. The persons mostly are engaged in vikarma, which does nothing but cover us more and more and more. And there's another kind of activity called akarma, which has no reaction. Karma has reaction, but it will be, let's say, gradually elevating. Whereas akarma has no reaction, as Prabhupada mentions here. There's no positive or negative. People just want positive results. They don't want negative. But that's still mundane. It's still material. Whereas akarma is activity which does not create any further action or consequent reactions in this world. Frees one altogether from the bondage of this world. It's not just making it better, but actually it's activities which bring it to an end. It won't happen immediately either. Said that this takes step by step. It takes time. Gradually, one is free, completely freed. Although the process of furthering our already existence reactions is brought to an end. The process is brought to an end. The effects may still come. The Prabhupada calls them token reactions from our past. But all this can be, by pure devotional service, can completely stop immediately. But because we're not engaging absolutely pure devotional service, there's still some time span involved, and it's gradual before the entire cessation of all material actions or reactions comes to an end. When the positive form, the Bhakti cult, negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. And this is explained in many places, but we can see this, this verse of Rupa Goswami, Nabanda Krishna Sambandha Yukta Varagam Uchite, and so on, that real renunciation is not giving up activities or objects that can be used in the service of Krishna. Real renunciation is to actually use them in Krishna's service without being attached from our own point of view, so to speak. Everything that can be used should be used in Krishna's service. This is real detachment, not giving up things which can be used in Krishna's service. So the whole material world can be used. Whatever body we've got, it's only a karmic. We're not that body. Whatever is mentioned here, we're in Kalo Shuddha, everyone is Shuddha or less in the Kali Yuga. Whatever, we're male or female, it makes no difference. We're all basically Shuddha or less. There's hardly a single enlightened soul on the planet, practically speaking. There are, but very few. And pretty much everyone's in the mentality of Shuddha, what to speak of Vaishya. I mean, that's a pretty elevated position. But somehow or other, we've got this human form of life, whatever it may be, male or female, it doesn't matter. Devotional service is equally available to all. The process of devotional service is for every living entity, in fact, and especially human beings. Especially. Prabhupada goes on to say, when the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. This is the Prumdishvanavartati, the higher taste. So when we become more attracted to the positive form, in the case of activity, we're talking of devotional service. In the case of objects of sense gratification, we could say maybe also the objects of devotional service, but specifically Krishna's devotees, and like that, our heart is beginning to become full or attracted by the form of Krishna or the name of Krishna. Then naturally one will lose the inclination to be attracted to mundane forms, etc. Therefore, with the development of the Bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, the eternal form of the Lord, not just the temporary forms of this world, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things, and he becomes attached to superior things. This may go on simultaneously to the degree that we become attached to Krishna, we become detached from objects of this world. Therefore, with the development of Bhakti cult, similarly, the Bhakti cult being the supermost occupation of the living beings, their constitutional position, Krishna Das, leads him out of material sense enjoyment. Well, that doesn't sound, I mean, for most people, that's like a curse. It's like being punished, freeing one from sense enjoyment. What a terrible curse. There's many, even in Gauranga Mahaprabhu's pastimes, there are many funny examples, you could say, in one sense, although real examples. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before he accepted the sannyas order of life, was performing kirtan in the house of Srivas Thakur every night. Not everyone could get in, not everyone was allowed in. The nighttime kirtans were only for the pure devotees of the Lord. During the day, Lord Chaitanya would go everywhere with his followers and chant Hare Krishna. Everyone could participate, but at night, it was very confidential kirtans. Some people, Brahmins also, were very upset that they were not allowed in because they still had false ego. We can't enter into the spiritual world as long as we've got false ego. So one Brahmin in particular, he was quite offended that, maybe a little proud of his position, he wasn't allowed in. So when he saw Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya, at the river Ganga, next time he saw him there anyway, he cursed him. He was a Brahmin. He cursed him. I curse you. You will never be able to enjoy sense gratification. Of course, Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy. Not that he was going to enjoy material sense gratification. That is, not that he was going to do it anyway. But still, it's a kind of blessing for a devotee. For a mundane person, it's a big curse. It's a worse curse, practically. Lord Chaitanya took it very joyfully. But for most people, they can't appreciate this understanding. We were reading yesterday also from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on their way to Shantipur from Mayapur happened to stop off at the house of one so-called Dari sannyasi. They're not really a sannyasi at all, it's just a false sannyasi. So they stayed in, they visited his house, and Lord Chaitanya wanted to bestow mercy upon him for some reason. They visited his house. This Dari sannyasi had women and girlfriends, and wives, so much sense gratification. He was preaching to them, I can bless you. I bless you that you can enjoy this material world very nicely. And it was going on and on. What is this? This is not the words of a sannyasi. And then Lord Chaitanya preached back, you can say. Sannyasi, wow, this is really Kali Yuga. Here I am giving, blessings, the most wanted blessings, good fortune to these people of Kali Yuga, and then they chastise me as a result. This is really Kali Yuga. He was going back, and then of course Lord Chaitanya preached anyway. Eventually they left when he offered them wine to drink, but somehow the Lord Chaitanya blessed him. Well, the moral, one of the morals there is that you may be engaged in sinful activity, but sinful activity can be. It's not such a big issue. What is a big issue is when we become offensive towards devotees, towards the Lord directly, especially devotees. This is a real block on our path. Even if we have a lot of knowledge of devotional service, even if we're very seemingly austere, but this one thing of having an offensive mentality towards, it could be anyone, but specifically towards devotees. And this is the big block to our progress in spiritual life. So Lord Chaitanya taught that as well. Oh, this Dari Brahmana was Dari Sannyasi rather was very sinful, you could say. He wasn't overtly an offender of the Vaishnavas. He was directly blaspheming or anything. So he was therefore a little bit more of a, you could say, more hope was there, more eligible to receive mercy, receive devotional service. So we'll read on and finish this purport. This that is a sign of a pure devotee. Supermost. We heard in the previous verse of Vaipung Sang Purodama Yutobhakti Hokshite that this devotional service is the highest religion. It's not a means to an end. Devotional service is the eternal occupation of the soul. Therefore, it's the highest occupation. Dharma means occupation, not just religion. The highest occupation, following the temporary religions of this world, may be useful, but it is not Savaipum Samparādharma. It's called Naimitika Dharma, which means temporary religious activity. Meant to elevate us, but it's not a permanent situation or a permanent activity. The real permanent activity is bhakti, devotional service, loving devotional service to the Lord. This is the soul's permanent engagement. And it's just a matter of maturing, a matter of time for that bhakti creeper to mature. The sign of a pure devotee. He is not a fool, nor is he engaged in inferior energies, nor does he have mature values. So we've heard that fools, unintelligent persons may take to bhakti, but fools waste their time in other ways, you could say. If we can get, Prabhupada sometimes gives the example, it could be, you could say question, but it's a simple example, that if you want to go to the top of an apartment building, why not take lift? Why walk up 100 flights of stairs, or 100 or 200 steps, or whatever it is? Why? When you can just jump in the lift and be up there in 5 seconds. So devotional service, there's a nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedeshya Geshu Tapasachaiva Daneshya Punya Palam Padishtam. The one who takes to the path of devotional service is not bereft of all the results obtained by study of the scriptures, by austerities, by the giving of charity, by renunciation, brahmachari, whatever path one may take to attain an elevation in devotional service is achieved very easily by those who fully take to devotional service. So what's the point of doing all these other things unless it leads to the goal? And if one has reached the goal, what's the use of all these other things? The devotional service is the eternal constitution of a soul. There is no need to divert one's attention in other areas. In conclusion, one who is a pure devotee has all the other good qualities, namely knowledge, detachment, but one who has only knowledge or detachment is not necessarily well acquainted with the principles of the bhakti cult. Bhakti is the supermost occupation of the human being. Okay. Back on the screen. I think that's the end of purport or not? Okay, it is. So we can go back now. Rasika. Hare Krishna, welcome back. Yes, yasti bhaktiya bhagavata kinchana gunai savatatra samasata varo. Arava bhaktasya kuto mahaguna manovate nasati dhamatibihi. It states in the Srimad Bhagavatam that one who takes to devotional service acquires all the good qualities of even the demigods. And as I said earlier, it doesn't manifest fully immediately, but the process begins. The process of perfection has begun. And as long as we stay, as long as we stay on the boat of devotional service, we reach to the shore. One is considered liberated, even though we may not realize their liberated nature. But as long as we're on the boat of devotional service, because the boat of devotional service doesn't touch this material world. It appears to, but it's not. So we stay on that boat. We will cross over the dangerous ocean of material existence and reach the shore, or reach the land of Golok Vrindavan. That's the idea. And the means to do this, or means to reach that shore, is devotional service. Now, devotional service does include, automatically, as we all know, it includes step by step maybe not all immediately all-inclusive, but step by step, it certainly does, even from the perspective of a materialist. It includes knowledge. There's no more learned scholars than the great Vaishnavas. They're very learned. Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana, they're extremely learned scholars in so many ways. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, many others. Vishwanath Chakravarti, so learned. Philosophy and scriptures, different scriptures also. Very learned, very knowledgeable, even of the material world. Many times you see very knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable. It's not that they're like illiterate fools. Even if they are, like Gaura Das Babaji was considered illiterate. But whenever there was a need, the Lord in the heart, as we know from Gita, gives the necessary knowledge. He gives that knowledge. We can see verses like Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Didami Buddhi Yogam Tamyena Mama Viyanti Te. That those who worship me, those who engage in devotional service, worship me with all their hearts, loving devotion. I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Krishna gives the understanding. He gives that realization. It's 9th chapter, which he put Vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartamavyayam. That this devotional service, this knowledge which Krishna is explaining, is the king of all knowledge. Raja Vijay Rajaguyam. Pratyaksha Dhamyam Susukam Kartamavyam. This is the king of knowledge. It's not just another one, it's the king of all knowledge. And it's realized, Pratyaksha is realized with spirit, when so senses become purified. Every Atakshri Krishna Namadina Babadvayam Indriya Seva Mukhi Jivados Svame Vispratita. This transcendental knowledge is realized as we purify our hearts, purify the hearts through the process of devotional service. Everything becomes revealed, becomes clear. So the real knowledge or the understanding by which they can come to me is that which is favorable for awakening our pure Krishna consciousness. Certainly there is knowledge. It may not be seen as a means to achieve material ends, but it is knowledge to reach the spiritual goal, the highest knowledge to release us from the illusion which we are tending to be in this world. The path of the knowledge pertaining to the practice of devotional service is given by the Lord through the media, generally speaking, of the pure devotees of the Lord. He can give it within the heart, but the general means is through the association, through the practical association of pure devotees of the Lord and following their guidance. This is the method which gradually, because why? Because it pleases Krishna. It means we're taking shelter, Sharanagati. We're taking shelter of Krishna, where our faith in Krishna is maybe a little immature, but it is beginning. And it will gradually grow as we apply the path given by the pure devotees of the Lord. Practically speaking, to the degree that we follow that, then the more our faith, the more our absorption, the more our confidence, etc., will grow. And the plant, they said, the creeper of devotional service will also grow out of the material world eventually and transcend and reach the spiritual realm. Detachment from this material world is obvious if our devotional creeper is growing closer to Krishna, when it's becoming less and less entangled in the material world, but more entangled in the lotus feet or devotional service to Krishna. So that's the secret. Mamcha yoga vicharina bhakti yogena sevate sugunam samati tyaitan brahmabhuya kalpate. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, that those who are engaged in full devotional service, we're probably not engaged in full devotional service, but those who are engaged in full devotional service, they don't fall down, means in any circumstance. We're fully engaged in devotional service, you can't fall down anyway. We're fully engaged. Sometimes there may be in the neophyte stage distraction and we fall away. But when we come to that platform of full engagement, there's no room for Maya to get in. There's no room for illusion to take over. Can't be there. Krishna's fully engaged in Krishna's service. Transcending the three modes of material nature, immediately one comes to the spiritual platform. We'll Where are we now? We're going to just backtrack a little. I'm going to just read a verse from the Bhagavatam. And this is also in the first chapter, but it's in the first chapter. Just to recap, the foundation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the means, by the way. It is a causeless because it's describing spiritual truth. It has not material cause. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is really the essence in terms of writing scriptures, etc. For a Vaishnava, it is the most relishable, the most important, the most necessary to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Mahamantra we chant, and that is everything is there in the Mahamantra. But we do need simultaneously to chanting. We're not on that platform of pure devotional service, generally speaking. We need all the, let's say, conviction and association and help that we can get. Srimad Bhagavatam provides all the essential necessary, whatever is necessary to help us to become convinced or convicted and attached to Krishna. By associating with the personalities in the Bhagavatam, hearing from them, and this releases us from the tendency to put ourselves in the center, to want to hear material subject matters, etc. So you'd have to read yourself. I don't want to screen share at this point. You can get your Bhagavatams out if you wish. The first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam establishes basically the importance of meditating upon Krishna. The whole of the Bhagavatam is geared towards this. Tendency in this was to meditate on sense gratification. So Bhagavatam is there to help us to actually develop this tendency to meditate on Krishna. One time Prabhupada said, Krishna performed so many activities so that we have something to think about. There's so many topics in the Bhagavatam to remember. And not just to remember, to apply the lessons so we get realization. It's not just artificial means of trying to, turn the mind away from thinking of material things. Ultimately is that we actually meant to develop a taste. So we don't want to hear anything else. We don't want to engage in it. You don't have to forcibly withdraw oneself. One doesn't want to be engaged in sense gratification. One doesn't have an interest. Why waste my time reading some novel or some new scientific speculation or some mundane information of this world? You may need it for your occupational service or for whatever we're doing in life, but it's not our goal. We don't want to waste our time with these things. We want to hear about Krishna. This satisfies everyone, not just us, but the whole world benefits. Everyone benefits from this activity, and Krishna is pleased. And everyone benefits. So how to release? Because this subject matter of meditating on Krishna helps to release us from illusion. But we're going to go on to the second verse. Completely, this is number 2 of the first chapter, first canto, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, which mostly religious activities are. This Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, not just a relative one, like going to heaven or gaining liberation or something, but it propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. Otherwise we cannot touch Sri Krishna Namadi. We cannot perceive that highest truth as long as we are attached or covered over by desires for material sense enjoyment. As long as we have blunt material senses, one cannot understand the transcendental nature. But Takshi Krishna Namadi, Sevan Mukha Hi Jivado. When we engage our tongue, Seva on Mukhe, through service and chanting and hearing about Krishna, then Krishna reveals everything. Heart becomes cleansed, Krishna reveals himself. That's the method, the process of Very simple process. It's not a, there are two basic processes and everything falls within them. One is the ascending, one is the descending. It's very hard. The ascending process is not easy. And it's like Krishna says in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, for those who engage in my devotional service, I am the swift deliverer from this ocean of birth and death. Those who pursue the other path, this path of knowledge, trying to analyze, trying to detach oneself, etc. But Krishna says, for them, the path is very troublesome, very, very difficult. But with a simple process of devotional service, one can easily be picked out of this material by Krishna himself, not by our endeavors alone. We make the endeavor, but ultimately it's the mercy of Krishna which causes the freedom of the living entity. Because takes a little humility, and a little bit of, people may think we're stupid, we're doing their fools, just dancing and chanting, but it's so joyful, as we heard earlier on, it's joyfully performed, and it pleases Krishna. And what is the point of all the other things? Yavan Art Udapane Sarvatak Samsatotake. All purposes that are served by a small pool of water are automatically served by the great reservoir, Krishna says, 2nd chapter Gita. So similarly, one who knows the purpose behind the Vedas, being the literally knowledge of various kinds, one who knows the purpose behind it all, of the Vedas, everything is automatically revealed. One doesn't need to make a separate endeavor. Just to know Krishna, that he is the supreme Janma Karma Chamedev Yum Evan Yoveti Tatvadaha Chapradiham Punaryama Naiti Mamiti Sorjuna. One who understands or knows Krishna as the supreme being, the cause of all causes. He's not of this world, he's spiritual, his transcendental nature of his appearance and activities doesn't take birth again, but attains to the eternal abode. This simple knowledge of Krishna, or activities which lead to realization of Krishna's transcendental nature, consequently the soul's transcendental nature too, is the highest knowledge. We can read in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, I think we can find it. In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a very wonderful section at the end of the 15th chapter. Here we go. This is, I think, 20, 18, 19, 20, 18, verse 6, 15th chapter. Because Krishna says, I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, whether living in his condition or not. Krishna is beyond everything. We don't become Krishna, although everything comes from Krishna, everything's a part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna nonetheless is himself the complete whole. In one sense, non-different than everything else, but in another sense, different. The philosophy of Chinchya Veda Veda Tattva. And because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in this world and in the Vedas as a supreme person. Whoever knows me as the supreme personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me. So we may be engaged in devotional service, there may be some reservations, there may be some attachments. When we come to that platform, then pure devotional service begins. Spiritual platform, pure devotion begins. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures. It's not some little thing for, unqualified persons to make a little progress. This is the highest, the most confidential part, which is only revealed to those who are fortunate, those with little humility. O sinless one, and it is disclosed by me, now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Just some little verses there. So simply by knowing Krishna as a supreme Lord, one is understood to be the knower of everything. But to know that, we just read in the second verse there, Nimatsaranam Satam, that in order to understand this subject matter, Nimatsaranam Satam means one be freed of envy, purified in heart, and the association of pure devotees of the Lord, trying to render service. And gradually this tendency, envy means to see myself in the center. Basically speaking, it's rooted on that illusion of seeing ourselves in the center. Gradually this false understanding, this false conception and consequent perception is removed, and one gradually sees Krishna in the center, in the association of pure devotees. Bhagavatam is aimed at putting Krishna in the center. Now in the third verse of that first chapter, which we'll now read, maybe might be the purport too, it states this: O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literature. It emanated from the lips of Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectar and juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Prabhupada writes in the purport, in the two previous slokas, it has been definitely proved that Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme or sublime literature which surpasses all other Vedic scriptures due to its transcendental qualities. It is transcendental to all mundane activity and mundane knowledge. This is basically what it means. It doesn't mean we don't do anything, we don't hear anything, we don't know anything. We just, no, but we're not, it means that our endeavor, let's say, is to understand the means of devotional, process of devotional service, and to become how we can become engaged in devotional service. What is favorable for awakening our relationship with Krishna? That is acceptable. It's not to be rejected, but rather to be accepted. And maybe at certain stages, one does let go of certain activities because they're no longer favorable for the ultimate goal. And if we don't know what the goal is, if we think the goal is something else, then that's something different, of course, then we'll become absorbed in other pursuits. But if we keep our mind on the goal to develop love of God, then it makes it a little easier to discriminate what is favorable and what is not favorable, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable at different stages. It is transcendental. In this sloka, it is stated that Srimad Bhagavatam is not only a superior literature, it is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures. The ripened fruit. When you have a ripened fruit, you've got what you've been working for. You don't give someone an unripened fruit when you have ripened fruits available. So you have this ripened fruit of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In other words, it is the cream of all Vedic knowledge. Considering all this, patient and submissive hearing is definitely essential. You have to patiently adhere Srimad Bhagavatam. Same thing with the holy name when we chant. Kinvaram Anudinam, Rupa Goswami says, care and regularly chanting, and with care and attention, we should chant the holy name of Krishna. With great respect and attention, one should receive the message and lessons imparted in Srimad Bhagavatam. That's there on that verse spoken at the beginning of Bhagavatam, but in terms of that purport. And I think we'll finish on this now. It's 9:30 yet. I'll finish on one verse, two verses, in the same chapter of the second chapter of the first canto. Sutta Goswami says, Vasudeva Paraveda, Vasudeva Paramakaha, Vasudeva Parayoga, Vasudeva Parakriyaha, Vasudeva Parangyanam, Vasudeva Param Tapaha, Vasudeva Paro Dharmo, Vasudeva Paragatihi. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate goal of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifices to please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know him. Religion is rendering loving service unto him. He is the supreme goal. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, that Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the only object of worship, is confirmed in these two slokas. In the Vedic literature, there is the same objective, establishing one's relationship and ultimately reviving our lost loving service under him. That is the sum and substance of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, the same theory is confirmed by the Lord in his own words. The ultimate purpose of the Vedas, Vedaschasarya, Aham Eva Vedo, Vedantakrit Veda Vedeva Chaham. The ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to know him only, not to know all the other things. If knowing all the other things doesn't lead to knowing Krishna, it's a waste of time. A few verses down in the second chapter, you'll see Shrama Avi Kevam, useless waste of time. All the revealed scriptures are prepared by the Lord through his incarnation in the body of Vyasadeva, just to remind the fallen souls, conditioned by material nature, remind them of Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This is the purpose of all the Vedas, to know Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. So, are there any questions or comments? Something's just come up. Thank you very much. This is from London. Two of our devotees in our marathon, in fact, two of our young devotees who took part in our book marathon just now for the first time. They took part in the marathon, Sankirtan. Were practically speaking the top two distributors. And both of them now gone to the manor for some training, you could say. And one of those is Fatima. Fatima is asking, how can we behave with devotees who ask us to do service, but we were already engaged? In this case, they can get offended even if we apologize. And it depends on their personality, how to be aware of our own limits. And in the same time, not offend others. Sometimes we may offend someone, not on purpose, or not to be aware that actually a word or way to behave can be offended by someone, but for us, it's not offending. So, yeah, we don't. The first thing is we should certainly not intentionally offend anyone. So that's good. And in the beginning, we may not know, so we may be seen like that. It's not the fault of that; it's just immaturity. But from the practical point of view, when it comes to service, what does service mean? We may think that I will do what I like, and that is service. Well, Krishna, of course, he will help us to go forward in that sense, but to teach us that service is something which is received. It's received unless we're a self-realized soul being directly inspired by loving exchange with Krishna. At the neophyte stages, we learn from others what is pleasing to Krishna. Devotional service means pleasing to Krishna. So what is that pleasing? We have, therefore, a system. Every walk of life, there's a system of behavior. So there's a system of behavior, and we generally receive guidance or we receive service from others. In certain stages, we may just say, I want to do this, I want to do that. Okay. But still, it has to be qualified. And if we really want it to bear fruit and be blessed or authorized or guided or whatever it is by others who are in a position of responsibility. So when we receive a service responsibility from someone and somebody else asks us to do something else, for whatever reason it may be, maybe all good intentions, we can say, we normally would say, well, I've received this service. We don't say I can't do it or whatever. We say, I've received this service from the temple commander or from some senior devotees asked me to do this. I'm willing to do whatever it is, but you please just qualify it with them first. If they become offended with that, that's their problem. But we refer it to our authority. Now, if it's an absolute emergency, somebody's just fallen off the top of the roof and they've broken their legs, and you say, well, I can't help because I've been asked to dig the garden. That's stupidness. That's a different thing. But in normal course of our activity, if we've been asked or authorized to do a particular service, that should be our first duty in normal situations. And if someone else feels something else is more important, you refer them to the one or the authority who has engaged us or authorized what we're doing with all humility. And if the other person becomes angry or upset, that's their problem. What can we do? What can we do? We don't want it to happen, but everyone's learning. Krishna is teaching everyone in different ways. But that's the normal situation. Not that we act on our own, say, whatever, initiative in those cases. We take shelter of the authorities, take shelter of Krishna. This happens at all stages of life. We even had this situation with Gadadhar Pandit and Vallabhacharya, who insisted that Gadadhar Pandit listened to his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, although Lord Chaitanya didn't want to listen to it. So none of his followers wanted to listen to it, but he forcibly played. Gadadhar was somewhat submissive personality. He was forced to listen, and he prayed to the Lord. And it wasn't his intention to listen. Please, forgive me. He was very concerned that he was acting against the authority of the Lord, but he didn't want to offend Ballava. So in some extreme cases, we see that may be there, but in the heart, there was no intention of offending anyone. So as long as we don't have this offensive mentality, don't worry, Krishna will guide us, Krishna will protect. And don't be offensive against the one who asks us or the one who's asked us or anyone else come to that. We don't always know what Krishna's plans are here. What is he teaching us? But the general thing is to take shelter of one's service authority and to refer the person to that. Hare Krishna, everybody. Good, thank you. Wish you a happy and healthy sometime or another. Thank you very much. When we do japa, this is Shirabani, Malaysia. When we do japa, that time our mind goes all around. Just make sure it goes all around Krishna, that's all. It goes all around. It's very hard to control our mind. Should we remember Krishna Leela when we do japa? Should we? Can we? We may have heard something. Don't speculate. Speculation is a very common thing and a very devious thing, but there's this tendency to speculate. So yes, we may. Prabhupada has given this sometimes in his letters. In these cases, we may remember, in fact, the pure chanting of holy name automatically will come to the heart. But some degree, although pure devotional service is not an imposition on the heart, it's natural, it's to be awoken. So remembering Krishna's pastime certainly is a major part of awakening. That's why Prabhupada first of all gave us Krishna book. However, his primary instruction in chanting japa is to just hear the sound of Hare Krishna Ram like that. But we all know how that isn't always so easy. We continually persevere, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, whenever the mind wanders, due to its flickering nature, one brings it under the control of the self. But again, it's not always so easy. So certainly, if that is something which focuses our heart or mind to remember Krishna's pastimes, whatever they may be, but don't try to speculate and don't try to imagine these things. And we see and we hear from our acharyas that before we can enter into these transcendental rasas, relationships with Krishna, anarthas have to be removed from the heart. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita and the killing of demons, etc., is related to that, to remove the anarthas within our hearts. So another approach when we're chanting japa is to take shelter of Krishna. Not just, that's one thing, that's nice, remembering the pastimes of the Lord, but also relationship, prayer. Oh, my Lord, I'm so full and my mind I'm allowing my mind to wander on other things. Please help, give me your mercy, strength. I want to focus on you in your form of Nam Prabhu. And that's another approach which we can have. This feeling of, helplessness, dependence, repentant feelings, etc. Either way, they're both good, but we see from the teachings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his Kalyana Kalpatru particularly, how he goes through these stages. We see Lord Chaitanya even say we have no taste in chanting. The real problem is we have no taste for chanting the holy name because we don't realize we're associated with Krishna, not different than himself. Somehow or another, we have to try to think of Krishna. So past times, we're just appealing to him or hearing the holy name, whatever it is. So Prabhupada has indicated these things differently in different places because we're all different. We're in different stages of advancement. And it's meant to have a change of heart. And the change of heart will be seen there when we actually start to feel regretful and repentant that we're wandering off when we're chanting Hare Krishna. Mechanical chanting, we don't care less. It just goes on like a tape recorder without any sincere feeling from our hearts, which often is the case for most of us. Therefore, Prabhupada writes, one should be engaged in practical devotional service, as we'll see in a few verses in the Bhagavatam, which is emphasized in order to develop this attraction for hearing and chanting about the Lord. The first thing is to be engaged in devotional service to those devotees who are freed of vice. Practical devotional service. In Nairobi, when Prabhupada was talking about some devotees and members, how to develop a taste in chanting Hare Krishna, Prabhupada said, taste will come when taste will come. Love comes when love comes. You don't superimpose. In the meantime, you continue to chant your rounds, be it what it may be, and render service. Of course, we try our best to hear. We try our best to focus our mind somehow or another on Krishna at all times of the day, not just during chapel, but particularly during chapel, and render service. Because the rendering of service evokes the mercy of the Lord as well as curtails our further samskaras from engaging in non-devotional activities, and evokes the mercy of the Lord, who then cleanses the heart. All these objects which attract our attention, call us away. Okay, how to understand. Thank you very much, everybody, for your good wishes. How to understand that Naimisharanya is the center of the universe. Other times, Srila Prabhupada said that Sri Radha Damodar is the center of the universe. I think according to the Bhagavatam, it said that Mount Meru, or the Dhruva Loka, is the center. Okay, lots of centers, huh? As there are many centers of that Hare Krishna movement. And each one, Krishna is present there. They're all the center, you could say, of the movement in one sense. Many senses. Well, Naimisharanya said that there's like a pivotal center in the universe. It's not necessarily three-dimensional in the same way we understand three-dimensional. Like the center of there'll be a center in the middle, which is like a pivotal, whatever you call it, in the middle. Everything's going around it. And it may not be seen in a geographically straight line. And it doesn't refer to that. We're on such a limited range of perception, and measurements are all based upon our limited perspectives. But as you may know, Naimisharanya has always been a special place, but it was specifically chosen by Lord Brahma. And he has a disc also, he threw his disc down from heaven, from his planet down. He said, wherever this disc enters the earth, it comes out the other side, by the way, also. That place is the place you should perform this yajna. Naimisha Sharanya. Aranya is the forest. Naimisha is the spokes, is the center, the spokes of the wheel. So it enters into that place, and that's where they chose. They asked Brahma where to do it. So this is the place. So it's a center. Why is it the center? Because in that place, of course, in this case, particularly Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. It's a place of pilgrimage as a result. Right? Sages go there to perform yajnas and so on and so forth. Very central in that sense. But there can be many centers on that same line, but they will have what is the center. Ultimately, they're all connected to Krishna. Bring whatever it may be, wherever there is Krishna. We're not an astrologer or one who studied all these things. Anything else? Maybe there is. Yes. Here's something. Oh, there's a few more which we missed. Okay. I would love to ask about recognition of healthy renunciation. If I feel attracted by the Lord, in the same time I have worldly responsibilities from the past and attachments. If one trusts the Lord enough to share the mission, give up useless knowledge, is it safe to do it slowly? Is it sometimes hard? It is sometimes hard to recognize what is really useful. Okay, yeah, it is to the degree that we associate with those on the transcendental path and those on the not transcendental path, our progress will be a little speeded up. It doesn't have to be so slow. Chanting kirtan, Yuga Dharma kirtan. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the acharyas, the shastras have recommended lots of kirtan. This is the method. And at the same time, Rupa Goswami has recommended revealing one's mind in confidence. So you can reveal your heart seriously, not with those who want to remain in this world, but for just the revelation, of honest revelation of our heart in confidence. Again, evokes the mercy or the attention of the Lord, and He will help us. We can't on our own. We're not alone. We can't. It's not just a process which we have to handle single-handedly. We have to get the mercy of the Lord. As Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, I can't remember, writes, probably Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the Harinam Chintamani, that it is impossible for the jiva to single-handedly overcome the illusion of inattention while chanting japa. Impossible. Fool's dictionary, so we're fools. But it's impossible for the conditioned soul to overcome that. It is only possible by the mercy of Krishna. Therefore, one should fervently pray for the mercy of the Lord. There is no other way of getting free. So we have to pray to the Lord. That is the Lord. We can work as hard as we like, but it ultimately depends. Probably writes later in this first canto, 7th chapter, text 6, that it is not the mechanical process of hearing and chanting. By the mechanical process of hearing and chanting, one cannot awaken one's dormant love for Krishna or affection towards Krishna. It is only possible by the mercy of Krishna. So we have to pray for the mercy of Krishna, no matter what it is. And materially speaking, people may also pray, but for those on the spiritual path, even more so, because we realize we're dependent on Krishna. And so we're Anu, we're tiny. Krishna is unlimited. He understands, he can see our situation. And there's no reason in a moment, you can get the change of heart. It doesn't have to wait for a million lifetimes. Come now, but generally, because we are still attached, we recognize we're still attached. We don't resolve ourselves. Oh, okay, that's my nature, c'est la vie. So what? No, there may not be feeling like that now, but the time must come. And by revealing your heart, and by studying the shastras, Srimad Bhagavatam in particular, and chanting more, praying, and the realization may come, why? As we sang earlier on in that song, Vidyara Dalasi, how Bhaktivinoda Thakur was looking back, what a waste of time. Why did I do this? That may come one day to us. In real sense, we can repeat these things. But we haven't got the realization. By these other means, by proper association, perseverance, chanting more, prayer, studying shastras, and this can say this conviction, this repentant feeling will arise in our hearts. Why am I wasting my time thinking of this nonsense? What good does it do anyone? It's just causing me distress and binding me in this world. That's no good for anyone else whatsoever. Even if it feels nice for a few seconds, well, so what? Drugs, heroin feels nice for a few seconds of relief. Everyone knows it is, it'll be destructive. Hare Krishna. Anything else there? I don't know if there's anything else. I think so. When we are fully engaged in devotional service, there is no chance of falling down. However, many of us are currently engaged in work school, which takes up a big chunk of the day and requires almost the full focus on that one activity, because when you're doing it, or when you have to do things to support it, how can one ensure no chance of degradation on the path devotional service when sometimes it's impossible? Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that full engagement in devotional service for grihastas means whenever they got their spare time, they don't waste it. You can't possibly be, I mean, you can, of course, to some degree, remember Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, and so on, even during your course of time during the day, maybe. But if you have a duty and you're going to do it, you have to focus on that. There's no point doing it, whether it's study or work, whatever it may be. Even in devotional service, we have the same scenario. You may be a driver. You got to focus on driving the car. Whatever service we're doing, we have to focus on that. Try to see everything in relation with Krishna. If not on the spot, at least when you're not doing it, try to see how you can connect this with Krishna, how you can understand this occupation in relationship with Krishna. There are ways of doing that. But when you're doing it, you may have to concentrate on what you're doing. It's like when you're cooking, you may not be directly thinking of Krishna. You can also, but you may not be. But you're concentrating on how to cook nicely. Why? You're doing it for Krishna. One time, I think it was it Bhagavatam? I can't remember which one it was. Well, one of Prabhupada's cameramen, a few devotees who were very good at taking pictures, was taking pictures of Prabhupada regularly. And one time they said to Prabhupada, I don't understand. I'm not in a good shape. I mean, I don't think of you or Krishna practically at all. I mean, so many of your devotees are so absorbed in talking of glories, thinking about you, thinking about Krishna, and so on. Not doing that. And Prabhupada said, "What are you doing?" "I'm taking pictures of you, Srila Prabhupada." "Why are you taking pictures of me?" "Well, for BTG, this, that, the other." Prabhupada said, he said, "I have no love for you, Prabhupada." Prabhupada said, "That is love for me. You're doing service for me. You're doing this service which is spreading this message of Krishna consciousness." He wasn't directly thinking of Prabhupada or Krishna, you could say, but he was thinking of concentrating on his service, which was ultimately for that purpose, to glorify the Lord. So you'll see that in due course of time. Monish is still schooling, but in due course of time, you'll see more and more and more how everything can be related to Krishna. And all of our great devotees, they also show this. Bhaktivinoda, Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, they also studied, they also worked for some time. But they showed how everything can gradually be realized or understood in relationship with Krishna. So it's not let's say, fall down. But whatever time we do have, Bhaktivinoda says, we shouldn't waste it. We should utilize our spare time. Kirtaniya Sadhari, very words, he says, qualified in grihastas mean in our spare time they chant or they hear as much as they can in their spare time. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, that's everything. Yeah. So I wish you all the very best, everybody. I say, welcome, Kalesh. I see you've also arrived in Govardhan. Yeah, we're all getting Govardhan now. There's backgrounds. And wherever you are, thank you very much today. And keep chanting. It's New Year. We wish you all a good New Year. And Hare Krishna. More chanting is required. That's the secret. Everything will be revealed the more we're associating with Krishna, the holy name. Having your heart will become cleansed. You'll get realizations, convictions. Take shelter of the Lord in humility, and everything will come. Some more kirtan. You can't chant loud here, but maybe you can chant loud at home, and we'll remove all of the obstacles on the path of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Bo Marie, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Go Premanandi, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. See you all soon, everybody. We're having one or two other, you'll hear about it, one or two other Zoom classes maybe this week, different parts of the world. If you want to join us, you can recognize info on that later on.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo.
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Guru
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna, Hare Bol,
Haribo. Haribo.
Hare Bol Maharaj.
Prabhu Jagat.
Go. Jai, everyone all over the world.
Haribol. Thank you, Maharaj. Haribol.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Lovely to see you all again. Just a reminder, you might have seen some of the messages on WhatsApp and email about making these little video messages for Maharaja's Vyasa Puja. Only has to be 30 seconds or 1 minute if you're with a family, but please try and make an effort to do that, because it would make Maharaj really happy to see all of us on the day. I know many of us can't physically be there, so if we can just make these short videos and then send them to me, and the devotees there will compile them, and then they'll be played during the ceremony, so then we each get a chance to at least wish Maharaja happy Vyasa Puja. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki
Hare
jai.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Haribol, Haribol.
Thank you, Rasikanand Prabhu, for your
Hare
wonderful
Krishna.
service.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Haribol. Haribol. Rasikanand Prabhu.
See you next time. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare